Well, and you guys have been working a lot on the mindset side of things too, right? And goal planning and just like energy in general through Synergy, right? So we're talking about kind of a theme of the show and maybe like how to reinvent yourself. Like we are going into the new year. We did kind of want to have one of these shows to kickstart things for listeners. And I mean, I'm at that stage right now too, right? The last couple of months, you kind of start to look at business, look at life and try and balance things. So yeah, you're going to be the guinea pig for today, if that's all right.
Well, here's the fun part of it. I'm going to reverse guinea pig you, I think.
Oh, okay. Perfect.
You said an interesting word of balance, right? Same thing with like the intentionality on like why we get into real estate. It's going to be different for everybody. So what does balance mean to you?
Yeah, it means autonomy. It means I have the choice to, be with family or work or, just the choice of freedom of time.
And so how close do you think you are to that point now?
Very close, but I set my own limitations. Yeah.
Ooh, interesting.
This podcast is holding Taylor back.
It is. Yeah. If I could claw back 3 hours a month.
I mean, time's a big piece of it too, but I think like, what I think a lot of people miss is like really defining what it is that they're looking for, right? So you said balance. How clear to you is it on like the pathway forward? Like a lot of people want the balance, if you will, want the thing that maybe it's like the Instagram fame or whatever the thing might be, right? Like, but peeling back the layers to understand like the awareness of where you currently are and what it's going to take to get there and the deciding factors of like, do I want that cost that it's going to take for me to go from A to Z on this path?
Yeah. Well, I think especially right now, like life is just so dynamic, right? So your balance needs to be changing and adaptable. But yeah, for me, it's like having stillness in my mind, like, away from the noise of life, because life is pretty noisy, especially in this kind of business. And then also having energy, right? Return on energy, where it's not like I finish the day exhausted. I want to finish the day feeling energized. So those are kind of my two pillars that I'm like leaning on right now. So that's where my balance is like, yeah, I need a balance, work-life balance, but it's because I want those two things out of life more right now than anything else.
Where you see yourself currently, how truthful are you being with yourself there?
Who is hosting this podcast?
Let's just light a fire right under Taylor.
Yeah.
Well, the podcast is holding you back, man. I'm just letting you go.
No, yeah. Yeah, I think I'm becoming more honest about it. But like you and probably Matt as well, when you're in this industry and your phone is tied to you, like when the good times are good, you just keep rolling and you don't think about your limitations of, hey, I said I wasn't going to answer a call after dinner, or I wasn't going to, do this, because I know those things fill my cup. For you, you're going to read half an hour every morning. That's got to get done. Then you start to make those little sacrifices like, oh, I'm just going to respond to this email, or I'm just going to do this one quick work thing, and then I'll get back on track. So trying to limit, like sacrificing those, is the struggle for me right now.
There's a key word there, and it's standards, and being like really clear on what your standards are, day in, day out, week in, month out, quarters, like just being so consistent and disciplined in what your personal standards are, and not of who you are today or who you were yesterday, but of who you need to become tomorrow. And I think like, as we start chatting more about this reinvention of self, I think like I'm a big fan of just like breaking things down to like the naked truth and being really real and raw and authentic of maybe what those limitations have been in why you don't have what you want right now. Being really raw and authentic with yourself and your, close community about maybe some of those vulnerabilities that you might have blinders on. Just, putting it off to the side over here. You don't need to think about that for now. And when you can like peel back that onion all the way back, to use a real estate metaphor, like you can build off of a really strong foundation, a real foundation that way, instead of just like the stack of false lies that we kind of tell ourselves of who we might be or who we, believe ourselves to be. And then as you start building on top of that, what are you doing? You're building on haystacks or sand or whatever, however you want to extend the analogy. And so like so much of that reinvention becomes like really, really getting clear on the man in the mirror. And then you connect with people who you want to be like. And sometimes the best mentors out there are reverse role models. I don't know about you, but I know a whole lot more reverse role model than like real role model. And there's been so many different points that have been like, that have pushed me away from who I don't want to be. And every time you get that nudge, you do get a little bit closer to who you do want to become.
I love that point, the reverse role model. I feel like I've based my whole life on this. Not to toot my own horn, but I think I do a pretty good job of assessing myself, like what I could have done better and what I could have done different in this situation. And then I also use this for other people when I see what they did. And it's just like, wow, am I ever not going to do that? Right. And then I feel like I've really done pretty good with that, the reverse role model.
I think it's more powerful than a role model. For sure.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
You can learn a lesson way more effectively because it's easy to look at a role model and be like, God, I'd love to do that. I want those kind of habits. I'll follow along, and you do or you don't. But like the reverse, it's a pretty strong slap in the face to be like, oof, that's something I'm not going to do.
Yeah.
It's usually one of those things that like your heart will feel a stronger emotion towards. See some dude robbing a lady's purse on the street or whatever. Like your instinct is to be like, that's wrong. Like, go get that little, beat. Yeah. Whereas if you see something good happening, like you're like, oftentimes it's not as much of a pull or a push. Mm-hmm. And so it can be like just much more obvious. And I think you have to sometimes touch the stove to understand that it's hot, right?
Yeah, for sure.